Okay, meet Mary. Now, Mary is currently struggling with her hair and she wants to get a more youthful look. But right now, there are 5 hair mistakes that are standing in her way. So if you're a veteran of the channel, why don't you go ahead and comment below and tell me if you can come up with the 5 mistakes that I'm seeing. But if you're new here, welcome. My name is Justin Hickox, and I've been doing hair since 1995. And this series is very simple. I help people solve their hair struggles so that they can get a more youthful look. And it's all based on an email that they send me. So let's read Mary's email. The email says, "Hi Justin, my name is Mary. I'm a self-employed artisan jewelry designer and maker, so I'm very much a creative soul. I'm turning 60 this year. I can't believe it. I've let my hair go to its natural gray over the past few years, much like many other women from what I've seen. I'm certainly not going to complain about turning 60. It's an honor to still be here on this earth. In my mind, though, I certainly don't feel or behave my 60 years. My hair has always been very fine in texture. However, since I'm no longer coloring it and have gone through some dreaded menopause, I'm finding it feels thinner and flatter than ever, and I'm struggling to feel fabulous or even somewhat okay in my hairstyle as I approach my 60th. I'm not unhappy in my natural color and sometimes add a peekaboo denim blue color underneath to satisfy my creative nature, but I'm really looking for some guidance here. Please find my mugshots attached. Best regards, Mary." Okay, Mary, first of all, I love that mugshots. You're speaking my language. You guys, this episode is going to be every bit as much fun as that email was, so let's dig in. Okay, now mistake number 1 is that the length is just a bit too long. If you notice that it's just starting to weigh her shape down, start to bring your eye down, and it's starting to flip out at the very bottom right on the shoulder here. And the concern with this is it just doesn't really go with this overall style, which is likely clearly a grown out bob, so it kind of makes sense. It's just grown out and she needs to trim it up. But it is the first mistake that I'm seeing. Now, if we do bring this length up a little bit, this is what that looks like. Okay, now I definitely recognize that this is not a finished look and it doesn't really address most of the concerns that I potentially could be seeing here, and yeah, it's not really a lot better, so don't run away. But here's the reason that I say this is so important. Bringing this length up has done more than just alleviate some of the concern of it looking like it's grown out. It's also allowing us more freedom with internally doing the layers, and we'll talk more about the shape here in a minute, but it's kind of opening us up to doing more of the things and correcting more of the mistakes that I'll be talking about here as we move on. So that is mistake number 1. Let's talk about mistake number 2. Okay, mistake number 2 is that it's just not quite layered enough, or it's actually those layers in the front are a little bit too long. And what it's doing is actually making that front part look a little bit thinner. So the thing is that many times as we age, or especially when we're going through hormonal changes such as menopause, we might find some thinning in our hair. And one place it's very common to start to go thin is right around your temples, right around the hairline. So that length in the front, outside of the bang area, we want to make sure that that hair looks as thick as possible. And sometimes that requires us to layer that a bit more, take it a little bit shorter so that it looks denser. The kind of second bonus to this, right, is that it will lighten up that shape a little bit in the front for her and allow her to be able to get it back off of her face a little bit more and kind of open up the shape so that she gets a little bit more volume. It's not going to make a massive difference in the volume, but it will help. And as I always say, it's a bunch of little things that add up. So if we did lighten those layers in the front up a little bit, this is what it would look like. Now you can see that while it's not making a substantial change, it does make that front part look a little bit thicker and denser. And that to me is one of those things that really does add up. And once we mix all these concerns together, will really make a huge impact. Okay, now mistake number 3 is that it's a little bit too layered right over the ear. And I see this all the time when it comes to bobs. And the fact is that you have less hair follicles between here, right? So if you draw a line from your recession to your occipital bone, from here to here, there is less hair follicles than there is from here or here to down here. This is a much bigger area. And that means that the kind of layering you can do back here doesn't translate to what you can do here. And if you layer it the same way all the way around, you get this little hiccup. And that's exactly what April's experiencing with her hair currently. It's a little bit of thinness right here. Now, we've already brought this length up, and that again addressed a lot of that concern. I've said that, or I've talked about that in other videos. But we do still want some layering in the back. So now that we've brought that length up, not only have we taken off some of the layering that was causing this concern, but we also took off some of the layering that was allowing for that beveling in the back so that it didn't draw your eye down the shape from the profile, kind of down towards the floor. So if we brought that beveling back and did not relayer the side, so we're only layering really from behind the ear, right? Not in front of the ear or over the ear, just kind of layer that back area to give it some bevel. This is what that would look like. Now, as you can see, there's still a tiny bit of thinness right over the ear here, or right under the ear here, okay? That's because we haven't touched that, meaning that we haven't allowed that to grow in. We just haven't layered it more. So it's no more thinness than it was previously, and since we brought the length up. But what you are seeing is that the beveling in the nape is really starting to lift the eye up and starting to be more flattering from that profile. Your eye is no longer directed down towards the floor. Okay, now, number 4 is that there's just a lack of layering all over, or really on the top and then in the back. Now, the concern with this is that it's weighing her shape down. With the fact that, as she mentioned in her email, she's got finer hair. I've spoken before about the fact that finer hair can have a tendency to kind of be heavier almost, even though it seems like it would be a lot lighter. Now, the concern with this is when it's heavy like this on top, it's bringing that eye down the shape, and again, no longer lifting the eye up, which is really what we want to focus on when we're trying to look more youthful. So I would say that we need some layering in the back along with the layering around the nape to kind of create a little bit more volume and pull some of that fullness out of the bottom and the sides. And so if we did add some layers in the back, this is what that would look like. Now, as you can see, not only are we adding a little bit of lift up on the top, but that lift on the top, we've also created the illusion of less volume on the sides, but we've also removed some of the hair from the sides through layering the top. So now it's kind of, that illusion is compounded. So now you're getting volume on the top, less volume on the sides, not thinner necessarily on the sides, just less volume on the sides, so that we start to really accentuate more cheek structure and more bone structure, and again, just lift that eye up. And that is the point. But I am not going to lie when I tell you that the curveball section on this one, you're not going to want to miss. Before we do that, I've got one more mistake, I guess, if you will, and that's number 5. Okay, I'm actually struggling with saying this because, oh, here it goes. Mistake number 5 is that she has no color. No hair color. The lack of hair color. That's mistake number 5. Okay, stop. Stop. I can already, I can feel the comments coming in. Okay, I have never ever said on this channel that anyone ever needs to have color or hair color done because gray does not look good and that you should stay away from gray hair, because I think that's completely wrong. And I don't disagree with that thought here. I actually think her hair is fine gray. I think it's great, and I think if that's what she likes, she should totally rock it. My point with this one is that since she is doing some peekaboo color, then she's obviously open on some level to doing some sort of color, even though in her email she did say that she let it go gray, and doesn't have no problem with going gray, and she kind of likes it, so why should we switch it up, and why should we add the potential of more kind of maintenance to that? I think that if we did actually add a little bit of dimension through adding some lowlights of her kind of pepper back into her hair, it would do a lot to really not only richen up her skin tone, but also create some more density within her hair. She's mentioned in her email as well that her hair was seeming to go a little bit thinner, likely due to hormonal changes. Adding dimension goes a long way to creating the look of density in hair. So while this would really add basically no really long-term maintenance, so minimal that it would be completely worth it, it would go a long way to adding kind of more dimension to the overall shape and even adding some richness to the skin tone, like I said. So if we did decide to do some kind of lowlights in here, this is what it would look like. And exactly as you can see, it's not dramatically different. We didn't color her hair completely, so we're not creating some wild amount of maintenance. But it does go a very long way to adding some more dimension to her skin tone and really adding some more just density and dimension to the overall shape. Here's the best part. I know that she's a creative soul, and I love that. I think it's great. I'm a creative soul myself, so I fully understand it. And I know that she likes to do some kind of peekaboo colors. White and black, which would be what you would kind of use to get this dimension in the low light, those two colors go basically with any other color she would want to do. So there's not going to be any concerns with her adding pink, orange, blue, red, whatever color she wants into that mix as a peekaboo color. She's good to go. All this is going to do is create more dimension to begin with. It's kind of creating a better, if you will, base or foundation for her to add her kind of fun, more artistic flair to. So to me, I feel like it's a small price to pay for a massive impact. And okay, now that you have seen what these mistakes look like step by step, why don't we take a look at the before and after to kind of get a better idea of where we started and where we've come to. Okay, so this is before, and here's after. All right, now as you can see, we haven't made it a ridiculous shift in her style. It's not a completely different style. However, we've really taken this style and created something that is more flattering for her overall, has a more youthful feel, meaning that it's working better with her face shape. And on top of that, still kind of opens her up to all that she would want to do with having fun and adding some creative flair. Personally, I think if she's going to stay in this particular style, this would definitely be the direction that I would head. But I have other directions. Oh boy, do I have other directions. When I tell you that these two curveballs that I have, almost kind of 2.5, it's almost like 3, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. You're either going to love them or hate them. Oh, you might hate some of them. So let's go talk about them. Okay, so let's talk about these curveballs. Now, first of all, you kind of understand where I'm coming from when why I chose these particular curveballs. And that's simply because when I personally read email and then look at her, I'm hearing somebody that is exceptionally artistic and really wants to express their artistic side. But when I look at her haircut, it's a little bit more on the conservative side. It doesn't scream artist like her email does. And so I'm wondering if part of her concern here might be just a conflict, the desire to be artistic and creative and have that expression, but being in a haircut that really doesn't scream that, if that makes any sense. So I wanted to kind of move towards something that gave her a little bit more, I don't know, of the look of an artist. I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll find out here in a second. So with the first one, I didn't want to veer dramatically off of where she is right now. So this is what I came up with. Okay, now this actually isn't a huge difference from where she's already at. It's not a massive difference in cut. The front has a bit more layering and the back is layered a little bit differently than a bob shape. But if she actually went into a shape like this, it had a lot more movement and a lot more texture and kind of kickiness and a little bit more of a kind of a whimsical flair, it would actually be quite easy to get back into a kind of bob shape if she decided that it really kind of wasn't for her. So this to me is while it doesn't look like it would be, is actually a relatively safe kind of move. And I personally love this. I think it's, like I said, something that's a little bit more comfortable for her maybe to begin with, but also a lot of fun. And I think it definitely doesn't come across to me as overly contrived or, overly polished. I think it's a lot more fun and whimsical and artsy. So that's why I chose it. But I have another one. This one is a little bit different. I can already feel again, man, I feel like this video, I'm just going to get it. But you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. So let's hear the comments below. Let's take a look at curveball number 2. Okay, fair. This is very different, but don't throw me over the coals yet, because in a second I'm going to show you a totally different way she could style this exact haircut, and it might be a little bit more palatable for some of us. Okay, but with that said, I personally, while this is obviously hyper dramatic, very different from where she's at, I love this on her. I'm just going to be honest with you. And the reason I love this is because it's got a very elegant look, but at the same time, it is extremely fun and playful and just cool. And I think that that is exactly what she is. Fun and exciting and, wants to go out and just really show off, the more playful and young and youthful side of herself. And I think this screams that. That's my opinion. So if you're freaking out about it, why don't you just calm down a little bit. And let's dive in over to 2.5 or 2B, where she could style a little bit differently. And that looks like this. Okay, so now you can see that while this is still obviously far shorter than where she's at, it's not quite as dramatic because the style is simply different. But that's part of what I love about this particular haircut, is it's got a lot of versatility. So she could really style this back off her face and get, just a little bit even more kind of punk rockish with it. Or she could just do it a little bit more down and a little bit, I don't want to say conservative, but a little bit on the more kind of conservative side if she didn't want to feel quite so punk. So to me, I think this is a really solid idea. And here's kind of the best part that I haven't really spoken about. This look, both of these looks, the hairstyle back as well as down, really have the ability to be dressed up or dressed down. Do not get it twisted and think that you could not go to a black tie red carpet affair wearing her hair back up and off her face. And if you think that you can't, I can have a conversation about a handful of different celebrities who have and looked amazing doing it. So it's definitely an option. It gets dressed up, it gets dressed down, you have all the things. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So I keep on looking behind me because I'm always thinking that there's going to be something behind me. Anyway, that's my thought on the curveballs, but I always want to hear what your opinion is. So why don't you head down to the comments below and tell me, am I crazy or should she do that? I think she should go short. That's what I think. If I'm honest, I say she goes for it. I think she'd love it. That's just me though, so you tell me what you think. Okay, and while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy this view, which doesn't suck. In fact, let me just give you this view here real quick. It's at the end of the video, so if you're stuck around this long, you'll hang out. So here you go. This is the actual view I'm looking at. That's not terrible, right? The river, it's kind of nice being out here. So there you go. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you next week.